So, Hot and Throbbing. Good book. This book, as you've probably heard from Drew's explanation, is not your typical play. And but it's kind of cool in that it expresses its point in, I guess, a creative fashion, erotically, I guess. But in its being so unique and different, we meet a lot of unique and different characters too. The story has its main character as the mom, Charlene, who is actually writing all of the sexual scenes and stuff that kind of explain and describe her life. That's how she gets things off of her chest and stuff. She is an abused wife and the mother of 2 children, Calvin and Leslie Ann, and she writes adult books for a living, so sexual books. She is a smoker and she has trouble dealing with her children, but she's also really easily swooned by her ex-husband Clyde, which isn't good because he's the abusive ex-husband who she has a restraining order against. While on him, I guess I'll do him. He turns out to be a rapist in the end, as Drew told you. He has a drinking problem, and when he drinks, he gets really angry and violent, especially towards Charlene. He's really good at talking. He can talk his way out of things, and that's why Charlene always goes back to him, because she always thinks that it'll be different. He has a really good relationship with Leslie Ann, and Leslie Ann doesn't know about his abusive ways, and so Leslie Ann really likes him. But him and Calvin don't get along at all, because Calvin saw him beating Charlene one night. So Leslie Ann is the eldest daughter, I believe, and she is very provocative sexually. She, like I said, has a good relationship with father. She doesn't get along with her brother, Calvin, because he's kind of a creep. She would rather go hang out with friends and stuff than do her homework, and so she has her brother do her homework. Calvin, her brother, is really perverted. He watches Leslie Ann change and stuff. He's super socially awkward and nerdy. He does his homework, but he's really smart. But he also feels like, since his dad is out of the picture, that he has to be the protector in the family, and so he feels that he needs to protect his mom, which comes up later in the book when he, in fact, starts fighting with his dad. Another thing that we learn about Leslie Ann later in the book, she's talking to her friend about sexual fantasies and preferences. And she says that she really likes the idea of being dominated, which I think explains a lot about how she's been raised by her mom and the books and stuff, and her dad especially. Even though she doesn't know what her dad does, she still is being brought up in that environment where that's okay to her. At the end of the book, Leslie Ann is really the character who is really different in the beginning and changes to the end. And I guess I would say she's the most developed. Even though she's kind of away during all the action, she has a lot of random parts between the story that kind of conflict. At the beginning, she's super promiscuous and doesn't care about school. But then at the end, she is teaching. She's a college professor teaching a class about Moby Dick. And so I think it was through the death of her mom and finding out that her dad, the person that she looked up to, and through finding out what the truth was there, she learned that she can't make the same mistakes her mom did, basically. And so even though like the play was super short and my first instinct was the characters aren't going to be very well developed, I think they actually kind of were in their own ways. So I think if there's any moral to this story, which I don't know if there is because it's kind of a weird play, but if there's any moral to it, I think it's like learning from our parents' mistakes and just being able to overcome things and finding out like the power that the truth has.